Hello, hello. Welcome to the 360 Method, a weekly podcast where we talk about everything Autism 360. Every week, we catch you up on what's going on with the program, chatting with team members, and talking all things mindset, as well as exploring relevant ideas that autism parents think about. This week, we're talking about Christmas and why it feels so hard. I'm your host, Ella Bailey, Autism 360 veteran coach and explorer of all things parenting support. Before becoming an Autism 360 team member, I worked in psychological research and behavioral psychology. So welcome to you, our lovely listeners. We care about you, your thoughts, and your experiences. So whether you're a program member or not, we would love to hear from you. Please drop us a line at hello@autism360.com, and we would love your feedback and your interesting questions. So before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal and Wangal people of the Eora Nation on whose land I live and work and from where this podcast is being broadcast today. And also just make the disclaimer that this podcast does not substitute for medical advice. If you're concerned about yourself or about a loved one, please do access medical or allied help. So I wanted to touch on something today that I think is a fairly common experience for parents of kids with additional needs or parents of kids who might struggle when things are out of routine or they've got sensory things going on, anything like that. And I think that question is, why does Christmas feel so hard? And I want to start off by saying that you're not alone. It may look like everybody on social media is having this glorious Christmas with their families, or, they might be having this picture perfect Hanukkah or whatever it might be. You're not alone in feeling that the holiday season can be tricky. And I think that, I was having a think about why it might be that Christmas can feel so tricky, or why holidays can feel so tricky. And I think that one of the main reasons is that, there's this expectation that events such as Christmas or other festivals that are going on around this time of year feel quote unquote magical, right? The magic of Christmas, the spirit of Christmas, those sorts of things. And I think the thing is that as we get older, unfortunately, we come to realize that actually the magic of Christmas is just a whole lot more work that needs to go on behind the scenes, So in order for the quote unquote magic of Christmas to, have this wonderful experience, everything needs to be prepared ahead of time. Things need to look neat and tidy. The aesthetics need to be considered. And somebody has to do all that work, and there's certain parts of the family that work falls on more than others. And so I guess I would just like to say that actually the magic of this time of year is mostly just more work that often gets shouldered by women for the most part. And that's why it's so easy at this time of year to feel like the magic is gone. I think kind of further to that, Christmas is one of those times when social expectations are at their highest and comparisons are at their most stark. I think Christmas is one of those times that people use to measure themselves against others. It's one of the times that they use to claim their sort of social status in the group, or display to others how successful they are, or those kinds of things. And they may not be a conscious decision on their part, but certainly it's one of the times of the year when the contrasts between the haves and the have-nots, or the cans and the can'ts, are most stark. It will always remind me of this story that when I was working before I graduated, I was working as a behavior therapist, and I went to support one of my kiddos who was going to be participating in his end of school Christmas concert. It was actually a end of their time at preschool moving into kindergarten concert. So it was his last concert, his last show with his whole kindy class. And I've been working with this little dude for a good 3 years, I would say. We were had great rapport. I loved working with him. I loved the whole family. Anyway, we get there, he's all excited. I'm there to support him. His mum and his little brother are there. And the kindy teacher the preschool teacher pulls mum aside and actually asks if she wouldn't mind just keeping our little man on her lap and, having him watch the rest of his peers perform, specifically because, he had a lot of vocal and visual stims that did tend to increase when he got excited. And she thought that it would possibly frighten or confuse the other children. So he was excluded from that Christmas concert. And, I think that is not an uncommon story. That really hit home at that time, that these kids are being excluded even in, the highest quality of institutions. It's totally, apparently it's very normalized for a parent of a child with a disability to be asked to keep their child out of those activities, especially at this time of the year. And I think that that can be why Christmas is so tricky. It's really obvious if your kid isn't able to go to their graduation ceremony, how easy it is for everybody else. It's really easy when, you see pictures of everybody else's family enjoying opening their presents and playing and saying please and thank you, maybe on social media, when your child may not be able to do that at this point, to feel really a lot of pain about that. So I want to say you're not alone, and that it can be a tricky one for people to understand, especially, maybe your kiddo has some struggles around lateral thinking. Maybe maybe their strengths are being really literal and really concrete about the way that they go about interacting with the world. Now, Christmas is one of those cultural rituals. It's one of the few cultural rituals, left in Western society that comes from an entirely socially constructed background, right? There's no kind of logical root necessarily to the cultural expectations that we have or anything like that. And I think if you're a person who doesn't engage with the world in a particularly lateral or non-concrete way, it can feel really overwhelming and confusing and hard to understand why people would be placing all these expectations on you. So I think that there's a lot of reasons that not just kids, but people in general might find this sort of a weird or strange time of year. So I wanted to suggest there's a few ways that Christmas or the festive season, whatever you are celebrating at this time, there's a few ways that we might be able to lean away from things that aren't serving us during Christmas and lean into things that are going to make this a more enjoyable season. And I think the first one of those is to reclaim your spirit of Christmas without doing anything unnecessary. So what does Christmas mean to you? What are the important parts and what are the parts that aren't important to you? So I'll give you an example. For me, what I love about Christmas, and this is probably not what everybody would typically say, what I love about Christmas is I love decorating my house. I love getting crafty and creative and making new ornaments and really leaning into, the color scheme or creating some new, scenes or whatever it might be in my home. I find that a really enjoyable, creative part of Christmas. So I'm planning, from the beginning of November, I'm making new ornaments, I'm spray painting, I'm bejeweling, I'm doing all these things. What's not really important to me is the presents. So I love to have like a beautiful space for my family to enjoy. What isn't so interesting to me is what's in the boxes under the tree. I could take or leave that. As long as the boxes have like a beautiful coordinated ribbon on them, it's not super important to me. And that might not be your experience of Christmas, but take a second in the shower to think about, okay, what about Christmas is important to me and what does not matter to me? Lean away from what doesn't matter. So in my case, don't worry about the presents and lean into what really works. In my case, that would be lean into the creative side of Christmas. Use it as an excuse to do craft. Use it as an excuse to get your friends and family in on some DIY decorations. And in that way, you're reclaiming the parts that you like and you're moving away from the things that aren't helpful. I think, my next point would be don't try and use Christmas or whatever it is, whatever cultural ritual or celebration that you're going to be engaging with or trying to help your child to engage with, this isn't the time of year to be teaching them something new. All right. So I don't know, maybe going to mass at midnight on Christmas Eve is not going to be the right time to be teaching your kiddo about keeping their hands to themselves. Pick things that are at your child's ability level and let them enjoy it, rather than trying to use the time to pick something that's above their capacity level and then having to teach them up to that level, because that's where the stress all comes from. If your kiddo isn't able at this stage to sit and listen without kind of potentially doing things that might not be appropriate for a church situation, don't create more stress for yourself by trying to get your kiddo to do things that they're not ready for. You're not going to enjoy it. They're not going to enjoy it. And it's not the right time anyway. They deserve a break. They've had a big year too. Lean into the things that they can and want to do and that you can and want to do as well. The last thing that I would say around Christmas is that this time of year, people are really looking for the opportunity to give back. They're looking for an opportunity to feel good about supporting others. They're looking for the opportunity to feel good about connecting with their community. And so I would really say, ask for help. Give people the opportunity to help you, because at Christmas, that's what people, lots of people are looking for, that opportunity. And by asking them for help, you're giving them a gift of being able to help you. I really want you to think about, okay, if I were looking for somewhere to feel community minded, looking for somewhere to feel like I could support those who needed it, what would I want to do? So maybe that's you asking for, I don't know, some help with Christmas cooking, or some help with playing with the kids, or something like that. I think if there was ever a time of year to ask people for help when they would, I'm sure appreciate you reaching out, I think it would be Christmas. Make use of that. Ask for help. Takes a village. I hope that you all have a wonderful festive season. I hope that you stay safe and have fun. I'm going to be enjoying a lot of pavlova and probably some mimosas. And I will see you back here next year.